The relationship you've got with the CEO is often the most important one for you as a tech executive. And yet, it is where many tend to speak the least. Yes, you might be talking a lot because you're giving status, whatever, but are you actually conveying what's important in the real stuff? That's the key if you want to be a good or great CTO, and also that's necessary and required in order to allow your team to provide what it ought to provide, to create a team that actually delivers dramatic results. In this video, we're gonna have a quick list of things you need to keep in mind in your communication with the CEO in order to be an effective communicator. And we'll start from the fact that often the issue is not lack of skill, but actually kinda cowardice. How? In a second. First of all, if you're new here, hi, I'm Aviv Ben-Yosef. I'm a tech executive coach and consultant, and I help people just like you minimize the gap between what R&D costs and what R&D actually delivers, and hopefully turn it all around so you become a net positive innovation center, not a cost center. And your communication with the CEO is a major part in doing that. So let's talk about cowardice. Frankly, I understand where this is coming from. So many people seem to defer to the CEO, especially if you have this type A CEO that tells everyone what to do, expects everyone to do whatever they're being told, is very prescriptive, seems to be maybe a bit too aggressive. We've seen those types. And yet, every time that you're being a coward, every time that you're bending down, that you're saying yes to something you think is wrong, you're doing you and the rest of the company a disservice. You ought not be quiet because you are afraid. It's fine to understand that maybe you disagree, but then we have disagree and commit. That's a whole different thing. But at least you spoke about where you disagree. You know that whatever risks you see are have been considered, etc., as opposed to when you're looking at something, you know, that's the wrong way of doing it. That makes no sense. That's going to make people angry. That's going to cost us too much. That's just, we're doing things that aren't actually going to move the needle. Whatever you're thinking, if you're just saying, okay, I'm going to bite my tongue and not speak, you, my friend, are being a coward, and cowards cannot be good leaders. That's the number one thing in this CEO-CTO 101 in communication. You have to learn how to be an effective communicator, and that means speaking up. No one needs an expensive leader who cannot speak their mind. And every time that you soften things and you're sugarcoating it to try to be okay with whatever, you end up creating a bigger and bigger rift between you and the CEO, between your organization and what the business side of the company expects and understands. And when that becomes too big of a gap, sometimes it's almost impossible to bridge it again. Sometimes it only gets solved by replacing some key people, and I don't want you to get there. So stop being a coward and start saying what you're thinking. Yes, you don't have to be too blunt, you don't need to be aggressive, but you need to say what you're thinking and to say it clearly. That brings me to our next point, which is about clear communication, because too many times we as tech executives end up speaking tech as opposed to speaking business, impact, etc. You have to speak to be understood. So when it comes to translating what you're saying, don't talk about refactorings and your frameworks and infrastructure, whatever. Try to talk about things simply in a way that would be understood to someone who is not in the know about your technical stuff. Otherwise, what ends up happening is that maybe they just won't listen to you because they feel like it's boring. Maybe, and this I've seen it repeatedly from CEOs, they will start to distrust you because being attacked by jargon makes them think like you're using it as a tool to enforce your opinion on them, to force it on them, because they, not being experts in the domain, won't be able to understand. It's kind of like when you go to the car mechanic and they start throwing all sorts of terms at you and you have no idea whether what they're suggesting is the right thing or they're just trying to, get some more money. The same thing applies here. Make sure that you're speaking in a way that's understandable for the other party. Communication is not about you getting the words out. It's about the other party understanding what you had in mind. If they have to decode you, you seem less credible, less serious, and they start thinking about whether they need to be listening to you at all. So speak in terms of business, cost, time, velocity, that sort of stuff, the things that business understand. Then let's talk about speaking and how much you're going to be doing. I say speak often, speak early. One of the worst things you can do is to be okay with your communication with the CEO being solely status meetings. Hey, yes, working on that, working on this. No, you need to create the space for proper communication so that when you need to push back, you two have already a solid enough relationship for you to be able to do it. You need to have the space so that when you have ideas, when you're thinking about things, when the CEO might be still processing things and not just coming to you when things are already decided, you can speak about it. Too many CTOs that I work with seem to have this sort of, self-esteem sort of problem. They feel like they don't deserve the CEO's time. Like, yeah, they never schedule real one-on-ones with me. Who am I to ask for that? But you deserve it. You merit having that attention, and you need to turn that into time that actually is cost effective for the company. So have regular conversations, not just status meetings, and ensure that during those times you are describing different opportunities, what you're seeing, you understand things better, you allow the CEO to come to you with all sorts of thoughts, opportunities, things that they're considering, and helping them process what's possible, what your team can do. When you know about these things ahead of time, oftentimes it means that you can adjust your team much more easily, because we are aware of things 3 months in advance as opposed to 3 days, right? This is all about moving upstream, which I have a different video about and I'll link to it. But that's what you want to create. The sort of relationship that makes it easier for both of you to communicate, not just when things are on fire, but regularly. So you create a solid relationship. You learn how to talk to one another. You build trust. You have the time to talk about things, and you never spring things up too late. Because you have this, you can be the one that tells them ahead of time where things are standing, what are the risks, where we're going. Because if there's one thing that really breaks the communication and the trust between CEOs and essentially anyone else in the company, is springing on them too late. Oh yeah, that's not going to be ready on time. Or them finding about things from others or from clients, which is probably the worst possible option. No, speak early so that they are never surprised. They are never hearing about things when they register it as too late. Yeah, I know you can, there's no real never, but as much as possible, this is crucial. Oftentimes, most CEOs I've gotten to work with, and I've worked with, I've lost count of how many startups and companies, they can forgive slow, but they cannot forgive not knowing about things, realizing too late about these screw-ups. Yes, you're going to be making mistakes, but they need to know about it before things turn into a dramatic outage, before they turn into a huge prospect, not being able to sign on time because you dropped the ball. Make sure that you're not missing out on that trust. If you have it, don't waste it. Treat it as something extremely precious. That's what allows you as a leader to gain more autonomy, gain more agency, and work in a way that allows you to leverage your organization better. And one last part when it comes to this is realizing that feedback is a gift. Don't fear it. Sometimes people, when the CEO comes to them and tells them they're not happy about this, about that, etc., they get this first instinct of fear, of being so stressed out, getting really nervous. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? The CEO is angry, the CEO is not happy. You know what? You're doing great, because if the CEO still comes to you and tells you what they see, the issues, the problems, you are still communicating. Usually, unfortunately, for someone like me who might be called in when things are not going well, I see that things are a problem when the CEO no longer believes that there's any reason to even try to talk with the CTO, that's when things are generally going in the wrong direction. So as long as you're being communicated with, you're being, they're being open with you, they're coming to you, telling you what they're seeing, use it, embrace it with both hands, and really show them that you understand, that you're listening, that you're going to be making progress. Ask them what they think you can be doing. Ask them about what would show progress. Show them what you're working on. We talked about talking early and often. Start being communicative as you're working on things, about what you're seeing, what progress you think you're making. Ask them about what they're seeing. A lot of the times when we get feedback and we show the other party that we're working on it, we have to be very explicit about the fact that we're working on it. We have to be more verbose, something that a lot of engineers and people with an engineering background are not very good at. But imagine that in the command line and you're adding like -VVV, making yourself a lot more verbose, because when we tell to the other person, they understand what we're doing. They can see it better. That's it. If you found this useful, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or comments, and I'll see you here in the next video. Ciao.